His fist slammed into my chest and I hit the floor hard. Laughter burst through the hallway, phones flashing, voices cheering, my pain turning into their entertainment. I looked up, hoping to find one person who cared. Mr. Brown stood at the door, and then he turned away. That was the moment I understood. I was completely alone. My name is Ethan Miller. I'm 16. I used to think I blended in just enough, not popular, not invisible, just there. But I was wrong. The truth is, it only takes one cruel laugh to erase your place in the world. It started small. A few whispers when I walked past. A shove that didn't seem serious. Just jokes, they'd say. I believed them. I wanted to believe them, because admitting it was more than that meant accepting that I was already losing. I liked the back of the classroom. It felt safer there. I could disappear into my notebook, write down thoughts I'd never dare to say out loud. Words were quiet. Words didn't hit back. Then came Jacob Anderson. He was everything I wasn't. Loud, confident, rich. The kind of person everyone laughed with, never at. One morning, he pointed at my shoes, the same pair I'd been wearing for years, and smirked. "What's that? Vintage trash collection?" The whole class erupted. I tried to laugh, to pretend it didn't matter, but my throat burned. Sarah Collins, the only one who sometimes talked to me, whispered, "Jacob, stop." Her voice trembled. He grinned. "Relax, Sarah. We're just having fun." Fun. That's what they called it. When the bell rang, I stayed behind, hoping Mr. Brown would say something. He didn't. He looked up from his desk and sighed. "Ignore them, Ethan. They'll get bored eventually." But they didn't, and I couldn't. That night, I wrote one line in my notebook. I wish silence didn't hurt so much. I didn't know then that silence would become my loudest memory. They started pushing me in the hallway. Not hard at first, just enough to make me stumble, to remind me where I stood. Laughter followed me everywhere now. Every whisper felt like my name. Every silence, heavier than before. I kept telling myself, just endure it. If I didn't react, maybe they'd get bored. Maybe it would stop. But each day, the jokes grew sharper, the shoves stronger. I could feel my world shrinking, corner by corner, until all that was left was the sound of my heartbeat. Fast, anxious, afraid. Sarah tried once. She walked beside me after class, her voice small. "Ethan? Maybe you should tell someone." I shook my head. "It's fine, I can handle it." But she didn't look convinced, and maybe she was right to worry, because the next day she stopped talking to me. I caught her eyes in the cafeteria once, across the room, but she quickly looked away. Later, I overheard someone whisper to her, "Don't get involved. You'll be next." I wanted to hate her for leaving me alone, but deep down, I understood. Fear spreads faster than courage. So I kept walking those hallways, pretending not to notice the laughter, pretending not to feel the bruises forming beneath my sleeves. Each night, I stared at the ceiling, telling myself one more day. Just one more. Because that's what hope looks like when no one is coming to save you. Quiet, trembling, and barely alive. It happened on a Thursday. I remember because the sky was gray, and everything felt heavier than usual. I was at my locker when Jacob's voice echoed behind me. "Hey Miller, smile for the camera." Before I could turn around, someone grabbed my backpack and yanked me backward. Books scattered across the floor. Laughter exploded. I froze. Every instinct told me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Someone shouted, "Get his face! Look at him! He's gonna cry!" I heard the sound of a phone recording, sharp, cruel, permanent. Jacob leaned close, his grin wide. "Say something, genius, or are you mute too?" His friends laughed, filming every second. One of them kicked my notebook across the hallway. Pages tore, my words, everything I had kept hidden, fluttered onto the dirty floor like confessions I never meant to share. When it was over, I stood there in silence, surrounded by laughter and torn paper. They walked away like nothing happened. I picked up what was left of my notebook, my hands shaking. By lunchtime, the clip was everywhere. Ethan the loser, locker boy. People watched it in the cafeteria, in the hallways, even during class. Some laughed, some whispered, and some just stared when I walked by, as if I wasn't a person anymore, just a joke that kept playing on repeat. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the red light of that camera, the sound of their laughter. I stopped checking my phone. I stopped sitting near anyone. Even Sarah didn't know what to say anymore. On Monday, I stayed home. I told my parents I felt sick. They didn't ask questions. They never did. The truth was, I wasn't sick. I was just tired. Tired of being seen only when I was humiliated. By the end of that week, I started taking the long way to class, avoiding the hallways, avoiding everyone. But no matter how far I walked, I could still hear it, the echo of laughter that wouldn't fade. Everyone saw it. They saw me being shoved into lockers, heard the laughter, watched the clips, but no one said a word. It's strange how silence can be louder than cruelty. You start to believe it means something, that maybe you deserve it. In the cafeteria, I sat alone. I could feel their eyes, their whispers. My tray stayed full because I couldn't swallow. Across the room, Sarah looked at me once, then turned away. I don't blame her anymore. Fear is contagious. One afternoon, Jacob tripped me in the hallway. My books scattered again. The students around us stopped for a moment, long enough for me to hope someone might help. But they just stepped around me, pretending I wasn't there, pretending I was air. Mr. Brown saw it too. He stood by the doorway, arms crossed. For a moment, our eyes met. I thought he'd finally say something. He sighed and muttered, "Ignore them, Ethan. They'll stop if you don't react." I wanted to scream, "They won't stop," but the words never came out. When I walked home that day, I didn't listen to music like I usually did. I just listened to the sound of my shoes scraping the pavement, slow, uneven, small. At night, I sat by the window, staring at the dark street outside. The world looked peaceful, quiet, but inside, everything was breaking. Silence was supposed to protect me. That's what everyone said. Keep your head down, stay out of trouble, ignore them. But silence doesn't protect you. It buries you. And that's when I realized I wasn't invisible because they couldn't see me. I was invisible because they chose not to. I started writing again, not for school, not for anyone, just to make sense of the noise in my head. The words didn't sound like me anymore. They felt heavier, darker. I wrote about the hallways that felt like traps, about the laughter that still echoed even when no one was around, about how every morning I stood in front of the mirror and tried to remember who I used to be before all this started. Sometimes I wrote to Jacob, sometimes to Mr. Brown. But most nights I wrote to myself, like I was trying to remind the small, fading part of me that I was still here. One line kept repeating in my notebook. They broke my confidence before they ever touched my skin. I didn't think anyone would ever read it. But one afternoon, I left the notebook in my locker. When I came back, it was gone. I panicked, searching everywhere. Then I saw Sarah standing by the stairs, the notebook in her hands. She looked pale, her fingers trembling as she turned the pages. Our eyes met, and she whispered, "Ethan, did you really write this?" I couldn't answer. I didn't need to. She could see everything between the lines, the fear, the exhaustion, the quiet wish to disappear. Tears welled in her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" Because I didn't know how, because speaking meant breaking the silence, and I was too used to it holding me together. That night, I didn't write anything new. I just stared at the last page, where Sarah had written one small sentence under my words. "You're not alone." It was the first time in months that I felt something other than pain. But part of me still wondered, what if it was already too late? The next morning, something changed. Sarah wasn't in her usual seat. I didn't think much of it until I heard shouting in the hallway. When I stepped outside, I saw her, standing in front of Jacob, her hands shaking, voice breaking, but she didn't move. "Stop it, Jacob. You think this is funny? You're hurting him." The crowd gathered fast, phones already recording. Jacob smirked, stepping closer. "Careful, Collins. You don't want to be next." She didn't back down. "Maybe I already am." For a moment, even he went silent. But then the laughter came again, cruel, sharp, the kind that eats courage alive. I wanted to step in, to do something, but fear rooted me to the floor. My heart pounded so loud I could barely breathe. Later that day, after school, I walked alone, coming through the parking lot. The sky was dim, wind cutting through the silence. I thought it was over, that they'd be done for the day. I was wrong. I heard footsteps behind me, quick and angry, then a voice, Jacob's. "You think you can hide behind her?" Before I could turn, someone shoved me hard. My head hit the side of a car. The world blurred. Laughter again, always laughter, before everything went black. When I woke up, I was in the nurse's office, my arm bandaged, the room quiet except for the hum of the air vent. Sarah sat beside me, tears streaking her face. "They can't ignore this anymore," she whispered. And for the first time, she was right. By the next morning, the story had spread. Not the one they filmed, not the jokes, but the truth. Teachers were asking questions. Parents showed up. Mr. Brown's face was pale when he saw me walk in. The silence that had once swallowed everything was finally starting to crack. The meeting took place in the school auditorium. The seats were filled with teachers, parents, and students whispering in uneasy silence. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. I sat in the front row beside Sarah. She kept whispering, "You don't have to do this if you're not ready." But I was. For the first time, I needed to be. Jacob sat a few rows away, his parents beside him, his mother's expression cold, his father's jaw tight. For once, Jacob didn't look so sure of himself. No phone in his hand, no laughter behind him, just silence. The principal began talking about recent events and the importance of safety. Her voice faded in my ears. Then she said my name. "Ethan, would you like to speak?" I stood up. My legs felt weak, but I forced myself to look around. Faces I'd seen every day, some guilty, some curious, some pretending to care. Mr. Brown sat near the corner, his eyes fixed on the floor. "My name is Ethan Miller," I said quietly, "and for months I've been living in fear." No one moved. I could hear the sound of my own heartbeat. It started as jokes, just words. Then came the shoves, the videos, the silence. Everyone saw, but no one spoke. Not even the people who were supposed to protect us. I looked at Mr. Brown, and he couldn't meet my eyes. I took a deep breath. "You all laughed at me once, but I'm not here to make anyone feel sorry. I'm here because silence almost destroyed me, and if we keep pretending not to see, it's going to destroy someone else too." The room was still. Jacob's mother leaned toward her son. "Is this true?" she demanded. Jacob said nothing. His silence told the story better than I ever could. The principal nodded slowly. "Thank you, Ethan." When I sat down, Sarah squeezed my hand. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen. Raw, trembling, but real. And maybe that was what speaking up truly meant. Not revenge, not victory, just being heard at last. I still walk the same hallways every morning, the same lockers, the same classrooms, the same echo of laughter drifting somewhere down the corridor. But now, it doesn't feel the same. People look at me differently. Some nod, some whisper, some avoid my eyes. I don't mind anymore. I used to think being invisible was safer. Now I know it was just another way of disappearing. Jacob doesn't talk to me. He barely talks to anyone. His suspension made the school go quiet for a while, but the silence this time feels different. It's not the kind that hides things. It's the kind that listens. Sarah still sits next to me in class. Sometimes she smiles when I open my notebook. The pages are cleaner now. No stains, no torn edges, just words that feel like healing instead of pain. Mr. Brown apologized. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. I don't hate him. I just wish he'd spoken sooner, before I learned the cost of silence myself. Every day I still feel traces of what happened. A glance, a sound, a memory that comes and goes like a shadow. But it doesn't own me anymore. Because now I speak. I talk when I see something wrong. I listen when someone's too afraid to. I learned that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just whispers, "Enough." And when I walk through those doors, I remind myself I survived not because they stopped hurting me, but because I stopped being silent. School violence doesn't end when the bruises heal. It ends when we choose to speak up.